I always like to do the going live wave. All right. So, welcome, folks. Good afternoon. It is the third Friday of November, Friday, November 20th, and this is the Tech Chaplaincy Institute coming to you live with Father Kathy Caimano, also known as the Free Range Priest. So excited to be joined by her today. We have a wonderful conversation lined up for you folks to talk a little bit more about her ministry, and websites. So let's first welcome Father Kathy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited and honored to be here.
Thank you. And why don't you tell us a little bit about being the free range priest?
Yes, I am a free range priest, and people always ask me if that's like the chicken, and I say, yeah, sort of. It's just like chicken. It's the same chicken. You just raise it better. This is ministry. It just tastes better, right? And what I mean by that, and what I do at free range priest is I like to say that I help clergy and congregations navigate the 21st century church and world. And how I do that is I work in creative, sustainable, and digital ministry. You know what digital ministry is, using today's technology to bring more good news to more people. And then creative ministry to me is what I like to call entrepreneurial ministry, how clergy serve beyond the walls of a congregation, which of course has a lot to do with digital ministry these days as well. And then sustainable part-time. How do clergy serve small congregations, and how do small congregations work with clergy in a way that is sustainable for both? And that is financially, spiritually, avoiding burnout, etc. So those are the three main areas that I work in.
Wonderful. And how long have you been doing this work?
I started Free Range Priest on January 1st, 2016. So I'm about to start my 5th year. And it's taken me a little while to sort of navigate into what exactly I knew that there was, institutional church was really struggling with a lot of things. And so when I launched out, I just thought, I don't know what I'm doing really, but I really want to try to help reimagine what church can be and what clergy service can be and other kind of ministry service can be in the world. And so here I am. And of course, this year, with the pandemic, it just totally changed. Like all these people who brushed me off were suddenly like, hello.
Yes.
Yes. Like, especially talking about digital ministry, people were like, oh, that's all very interesting. Right? And then, like in late March, right before Easter, my phone would not stop ringing.
Yes.
So that's changed a lot. So things have kind of skyrocketed this year, but it's kind of gradually gained some speed over the years. And I feel like I'm finally kind of rocking and rolling in all of this.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so one of the things that you do so well is help folks with websites. And that's one of the things we want to talk about today is, as a faith community, as a mission-driven organization, what is the role of a website? What kinds of struggles do people have with websites? And what kind of resources and tools can we provide folks in this conversation and beyond with their website? So let's start talking about why a website. Why should faith communities be invested in having a good website? And what does it look like to have a good website?
That is such a good question. Thank you for asking that question. I always say a website is it's your church's digital doorway, right? So like having a website is literally having an address and something at that address for people to find you in the virtual world. It is just the same thing in a different platform as having a building on a street, right? And so people are going to drive by and they're going to be able to find you and they're going to be able to come in, one hopes. And then like social media, I always say, is like everybody talking over the fence in their backyard, right? But websites are really important in that sense. People need to be able to find you, and you want to be able to welcome people in to your digital space. And one of the things that I say about websites all the time is that it should be digital sanctuary, not digital library. I feel like so many churches, they got a website, in 2004, right? And nobody's seen it since then. And if you look there's still a Christmas sermon from 2005 somewhere on there. And so it also has, and I mean this with all love, pages and pages and pages of the history and every person who's ever been there, and like pictures from people, not very good pictures of people who haven't been there in decades, and all the little children who are now like 30 years old, right? And so and it feels like the mindset back in the day, in the beginning of digital ministry, was that this is all brand new and we want to just put everything out there, which was awesome. But in this day and age, when there's so much digital content and every single person is online, then I feel like it needs to be a curated experience where people are experiencing who you are, what you believe, and basically how much God loves them when they come into your space, right? And I think that most churches, I shouldn't say most, many churches have a hard time making that transition from one place to another in today's world. Although it's easier and cheaper than it's ever been ever. And so I feel like now is the time to really grab that and rethink that and really think about who you want to engage with and who you want to be online.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's a really great point. And so for folks who have a website, let's start with folks who have a website, because if you don't have a website, the first step is to think about getting one. But for folks who maybe someone made the website a couple years ago and gifted it to the church, or there's a website that exists, but it's not where you want it to be, it can be better. Where do people start? What does that process look like for upgrading or updating a website to really embody who a community is today?
That's such a good question again. I would say that has like a tech answer and then like a ministry answer, as all things do for me. I do think on the very most basic level, like grab a hold of that space. Like, again, my experience with working with churches is that so many of them, again, they called the tech guy, they paid someone a whole bunch of money 20 years ago. They don't even know how to get there, where it even is, so grab that space, right? Start all over again, right? That's also like free yourself. I would start from square one, actually. First of all, grab a domain name that makes sense. That's the other thing from 2004. There's a lot of this like, FMGX_Z, screen post at, it's like, that's not going to stick in people's minds. And also St. Thomas Church, you know how many there are of those, right? So like find a domain name that means something to you that people can remember, register it, then find a way to edit and produce a website that people in your congregation can do themselves. So you can use things like Wix or Weebly or things that are, in fact, free, although I say free like this because you do have to pay to host. But these days, it's pretty easy to find a website builder that's pretty intuitive and doesn't cost money to actually, make it. And then start from nothing. I think that's the easiest thing. And only put on your website the 3 or 4 main things that you need to put on your website, right? And so to me, that is, who you are, where you are, and what you believe, right? Yes. Even in this day and age, even in pandemic land, please put the state that you're in or the country, right? Like, that's the other thing that drives me crazy. People will put their address and then they won't put what state they're in. So you're, what brand of church you are, what, where you're located, what time your churches are, what time your services are, and somebody that people can talk to. This is also my big thing about websites. Often say, contact us. And then you have to fill out a form that's very anonymous. And so if somebody is at 2 a.m. trying to decide if God exists or if their life has meaning and they want to talk to someone, it's going to be really hard for them to reach out to a blank form that they don't know where it's going. Put your face there and say, Father Kathy wants to talk to you, right? Here's her email, whoever it is. Someone on the other end of that line. And then I would say a couple of beautiful pictures, and some kind of statement of faith or statement of how much people are loved by God or something like that in the clearest, cleanest way possible. And you're done. And that's really it. And then connect it, to your email or to your email automation or whatever you've got so that people can get in touch with you. And then really you could do it this weekend. And it would cost you whatever it costs you to host it, $200 a year, and like $12 a year for your domain name. So for $212 a year, you could do it this weekend.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree.
I even do design websites and I charge money for that. And I'll be glad to talk to you about making it more fancy and all the rest of that. Oh, and your online services too. Like most free website builders now have a way to embed videos. So with the little church that I work with, I embed the actual video that we did for worship right on the website. So if you do a live stream or any other kind of worship, go ahead and embed that onto your website. So when people come to your digital doorway, they can go right to church if they want to, that sort of thing. I think that, and again, with today's technology, it's so easy. So I would kind of scrap the one you have. You can always forward that domain to your new one and like start again, free and clear, and make it easy, and make sure that at least 5 people at your church know how to do it and fix and change things and that sort of stuff. And then you're off and running. It shouldn't be hard, I don't think.
Right. And I think that's where people get hung up on, is they get inside their head about it. They think this is a tech thing. I don't do websites. This is not part of, I didn't learn this in seminary. Like I've heard that so many times. But I think that when you recognize the importance of a website for your faith community, and then you also recognize that it's not that it's easy so much as it's simple, right? It's very straightforward. Right. And if you give yourself the grace and the time to get in there and experiment and play around with it and just figure it out, then we believe you can do it. We believe in you.
Yes.
And hope that you can believe in yourself. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, and I thought of one more thing that I also think sort of messes with congregational websites sometimes. I would recommend making it public focused, if you will. So many church websites, excuse me, I have to cough. I'm going to.
Quite all right.
So many websites have like the server schedule or the internal newsletter, and it says things like, you know, we're all going to be at Jane's for potluck, right? Which is all well and good for people who belong to that community, but I honestly don't think it's very invitational to people who actually have never heard of you before. And so there are password protected areas for websites, there are Facebook groups, there are email lists, there are many ways that you can communicate congregationally. And I think that congregations should really make an effort to make their website, again, the digital doorway. What do you want to be facing the world, the people who haven't met you yet? And how is it engaging them? And there's a kind of insiderness to that kind of intercongregational stuff, which doesn't mean to be that, but it can be very off-putting to people who've never met you. And it can be full of lingo in ways that you don't even realize it is, that's off-putting. So I recommend finding more private ways, and then of course invite people into those, but finding more private ways to be talking intercongregationally.
Absolutely. I completely agree. That's such a great point as well. The last question I have for you is about online giving and websites.
Yeah.
So it's such a crucial element, more so today than ever before, that faith communities and other mission-driven organizations are able to take donations, to take pledges, all these sorts of things on their website. So what are the tools that you think are a really great resource for that, or option for that for folks today?
I got 3 things to say about that. I think I might have more, but I think I have 3. One is there are a lot, as you know, of church-related platforms that are just like Tithely or other places, things like that. I'm going to go against the grain and say that I don't recommend those. And the reason for that is that I feel like they end up siloing churches, right? In a lot of ways, they take you out of the mainstream of tech platforms that so many people use for so many different things. And so, and for a lot of things, there's lots of kind of church software kind of stuff that keeps track of membership and all that. I think what it does is it makes your membership have to learn 2 different sets of tech, if you will, and 2 different platforms, if not 3. So I always recommend using platforms that are more widely used among people, so that it seems more native to them and it's easier for them to interact with. So that's just my bias on that. So for that reason, this is number 2, I recommend PayPal for nonprofits, because they have donation buttons that you can put up, and they take less money out of, they take fewer fees, if, and that sort of thing. And you can apply for a PayPal account. I work on contract with a small congregation, and I invoice them through PayPal, and they don't have to pay any, I guess it takes a little bit out of my end of it. I don't remember, but they have a nonprofit for PayPal account. And I also find that for them, again, an older congregation that's not super tech savvy, they know what PayPal is though. And so it's a lot easier for them to use. And then the third one, because I'm very entrepreneurial in ministry, I also think that this is an opportunity for churches to not just get donations, but to offer services that people can pay for online. Like, for instance, join our Bible study, right? Or join our, faith practices group or whatever, and make it some kind of subscription, even if it's a tiny amount of money. Like maybe it's $5 a month, right, to be part of this subscription group, as a way not just to raise money, but again to engage people who are not geographically near your congregation, right? To help form a community where none exists. You don't have to have money to do that, but I think it's one way, if you will, to have people put skin in the game. And I also think it's a way for small congregations to realize that they have the potential, or any size congregation, but they have the potential to have members all over the world, right? So you could have you could have 500,000 digital members who are all paying you $5 a month. That'll cover your budget.
Absolutely.
Importantly, it'll create this level of community, with people who are never actually going to come into your actual doorway because they live in Australia or wherever they live, right? So, and you don't, and you live in Denver or Charlotte or whatever. So those are my thoughts about it. That's a big topic.
Yes, but I think that you're making some really great points about how people are more familiar with things like PayPal than they might be about Tithely, and that could really make the difference in implementation and adoption for those kinds of things. So that's a really great point. Giovanna, I just want to check in with you to see if there's anything from the chat or anything else we need to address before we close for today.
Nope, there's nothing.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Father Kathy, for joining us today. How can folks connect with you if they would like to?
You can come to my digital doorway at freerangepriest.org. You can also, it's Father Kathy, F.R. Kathy. You can see my name there. It's F.R.C.A.T.H.I.E. You can also email me at fatherkathy@freerangepriest.org. So you can find me either one of those places. And thank you. I really appreciate this. This is such a lovely thing.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all for joining us as well. So this has been this month's Tech Chaplain Check-In with Father Kathy and the Tech Chaplaincy Institute. We hope you all are doing well and wish you all a happy Thanksgiving for those who are in the United States and a wonderful week ahead. So we'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye.
And be sure to sign up for our newsletter to find out what next month's topic is going to be.